British spy movies. You love them, I love them, women love them.
If you save the world, we can do it in the asshole.
The Kingsman franchise also loves British spy movies almost in the same endearing way that Austin Powers does.
Right.
We've gotten 3, basically 4 Kingsman movies, if you include Argylle, which I learned was in the same universe about literally 2 days ago when I watched it for the first time. And with that, you also get tons of skeptics. For a franchise that has slightly grossed above $1 billion, including Argylle, any comment section, Reddit post, or published article will have tons of pretty disgusted remarks about this set of movies. As a side note, Kingsman does not cross $1 billion without Argylle, so that's something.
Oh, for the love of baby Jesus!
These movies, as Matthew Vaughn says, are inspired from the tonal shift in spy movies, especially in the mid-2010s. As he stated, the spy genre wasn't what it was when he was growing up. Bond and Bourne were both too serious, and he wanted to return to what he grew up with.
Shocking.
Yet, somehow, we start with something like this, and get to something like, oh, I don't know.
Now it's time to address the balance of my new flock. Thanks to you, comrade, our left hand is strong. This young man will come to rival your position in this world, my friend. Adolf Hitler.
Mustache Man himself showing up like it's a Marvel movie. And speaking of mustaches, here's a mustache transition for some reason. A little bit of a tonal shift, I'd even say. These movies, though, as Vaughn suggests, do what they set out to do. They are tonally different, more comparable to the pre-Daniel Craig Bond era movies, the older style that also inspired the totally off-the-hook Austin Powers movies. But the weird thing is, despite these movies searching for a parody-like take on the Bond style of British spy films, something changes over each installment. Both of the modern-day Kingsman movies shift, and the same goes for The Kingsman, and of course Argylle. They are in a way parody movies, but they also don't take the spy genre as lightly as perhaps even Vaughn suggests. These are movies that glamorize wearing suits, go for insane shock value, and make you laugh while you're getting your blood pressure up. So aside from all the outside criticism, how do we go from Eggsy to literal Adolf Hitler? The Kingsman franchise is really hard to condense into one concrete description, because it itself is always changing. If you were to list the basics of a Kingsman movie, you wouldn't be able to, aside from naming off cornerstones of each of these movies, like great actors, the spy genre, or insane fights. One of the biggest cornerstones, though, are massive subversions that can completely skew the movies. These subversive moments are risks, something that I do believe adds greater stakes to a story, especially a spy one. Luckily, if you aren't stuck in 2018 because some other director said subvert expectations, you'll likely enjoy this video. Ironically, it is because of these subversions that I believe Kingsman the Secret Service and the Kingsman are so similar at their bases. It's probably why I would say I enjoy them the most out of this franchise. It's no secret that Kingsman is based in a fantastical universe, like most spy films are, but these elements are often highlighted in Kingsman movies. Every movie has its fight scenes that are uniquely identifiable as pieces of this franchise. The church fight in Secret Service, the car scene from the Golden Circle, and the no man's land fight in the Kingsman are specific examples of uniqueness tied to this franchise. And I do say uniqueness because no matter how much I like the Craig Bond era films or the Mission Impossible movies, some of their action sequences blur together, making anything aside from a once-in-a-movie stunt feel like it could be in either franchise. So going from Eggsy to Adolf Hitler takes a lot of winding roads. Let's really understand how that happened. Kingsman: The Secret Service is a pastiche of Connery Bond era films. You get the dramatic, whimsical, and even sometimes vaguely threatening Valentine as your villain. The spy network has over-the-top gadgets that are easy to hide in plain sight, and even nods at iPads having caught up with the spy game. What the first movie accomplishes is Connery Bond knocked up to an 11. The villain is the traditional megalomaniac, but he dreamed of growing up to be a British spy that he clearly is not, and he's also obsessed with McDonald's. The spy agency is inspired by the Knights of the Round Table, with Galahad being the primary knight of the movie. And then you have Eggsy, the lower class kid who, against all odds, doesn't become a Kingsman.
Is that it?
It's subversions like that, or like this, that makes the Kingsman series uniquely itself. The Secret Service specializes in keeping you on your feet. It's just one of those movies that you never want to end because of how good it is. Funnily, the movie is inspired by Casino Royale, because the creators expected the first Craig-era movie to be about Bond in the Academy, which it definitely wasn't.
Yes!
So they created the Secret Service to show the Spy Academy and the whole acceptance process, which I'm so glad they did, because who doesn't want to have nightmares about this? And of course, with these subversions being so successful in the first movie, you've got to do them in the next one, right? Or you could do that. Yeah, so when I said that the Secret Service took Connery-era films up to an 11, the Golden Circle decided to do that with the first Kingsman, so now everything is extra extra. Now let me preface by saying I really like Golden Circle. It is my least favorite of the 3 Kingsman movies, but I still really like it.
Still fucking spectacular, eh?
But see, that's kind of my problem with Golden Circle. It definitely uses subversion, but it also kinda overuses it. I specifically want to say killing Merlin and Roxy absolutely gutted me. Like, hurt me to my core, gutted me. Yet my problem isn't that they were killed, it was how they were killed. Say if Roxy and Eggsy were at the Swedish palace, you could have them alive for the whole-ish movie, and she still dies at the end, or maybe Merlin's sacrifice is saving Roxy, but she dies saving Eggsy. I don't know, but the way she died and the way he blew himself up is kind of needless. This specifically is where I think it quote-unquote went wrong. The Secret Service is a fantastic movie from beginning to end, and Golden Circle is just as fun. But some of those more subversive or fantastical elements are kicked up much higher. Like, here's a fucking lightsaber. Or Elton John doing Elton John things.
Oh, fuck you!
And don't get me wrong, these are tons of fun, but I can also see why it doesn't land for everyone. I kinda see Kingsman 2 like these 2 scenes from Argylle. These alone are fantastic, but back to back in the span of 10 minutes, it's a little too much. Like, I actually enjoy a lot of elements from Golden Circle, and that does go for Argylle as well, but I can also understand where it could lose some people. Secret Service has this nice middle ground for everyone. If you like spy movies, Brits saying bruv, and exciting action sequences, it's for you. Then, you go into Golden Circle and boom, Harry's back, or Roxy's dead, or Elton John is being Elton John.
What have you done to me, you fucking bitch?
This seems like what most people had issues with in Golden Circle, which I also believe stems from something else. The one thing I hadn't mentioned about Secret Service is the very deep, emotional story at the heart of it. Eggsy's father died and his mother gets into an abusive relationship. Therefore, his sister is completely neglected as a result. These two become crutches for him as he starts his journey to becoming a Kingsman. And neither of these people are mentioned in Golden Circle. His mom shows up at the wedding, but that's about it. There's a really strong use of Harry as emotional baggage at the beginning. But even Roxy and Kingsman's destruction seem more like an afterthought. I'm still semi-mixed on bringing Harry back, even though I adore Colin Firth in these movies. But I think overall the misuse of a deeply grounding emotional connection is what hurts Golden Circle more than the subversions.
Is that it?
Take a walk with me. Both Secret Service and Golden Circle have an emotional crutch for Eggsy in the final sequence. One is his sister and mother, while two is Princess Tilde. Yet aside from the first example being familial, the second one doesn't feel as urgent. Part of this has to do with the manufactured tension between Eggsy and Tilde for the cheating sequence at Glastonbury that never needed to happen the way it did, or the fact that Eggsy and Tilde don't really have much chemistry. And the other part is that she's also treated more of an afterthought than an imminent danger. This isn't the only time that emotional weight isn't carried throughout Kingsman 2. As a side note, Golden Circle kind of avoids how big of a deal Valentine's massacre of the world leaders is. Like, yeah, we get the whole
Still fucking spectacular, eh?
which is great and all, but there's no real mention of how the world grappled with the elite trying to destroy everyone, everywhere. Anyone with emotional weight, again, you have Roxy and Merlin examples as well, but even Poppy doesn't feel as threatening or as personal as Valentine, and I think I know why. The church sequence is probably one of the most iconic fight scenes in cinematic history, and I think simply, Golden Circle chases that high more than it relies on emotional storytelling. Secret Service has that high built into it, and it continues into even the final act. Just look at the built-in high with the skydiving sequence for the initiates. Golden Circle feels like it's trying to psych you out with one misstep or subversion after another, while also force the stakes to be higher, which is attempted with Merlin's death. He probably could have just waited for them to disarm the bombs because those 5 guards weren't really worth his life, as you can tell by Eggsy and Harry taking down everyone inside the base. This doesn't mean that the final fight sequence is bad, it just misses the emotional weight. I think it picks back up towards the end of the fight when Eggsy fights Charlie.
Let's make this fair.
But this struggle of emotional weight is carried even into the 3 villains of the franchise as well in Poppy, the Scotsman, and Valentine. Poppy's motivations don't feel as fleshed out. She's maniacal, sure, but Valentine especially has a personable motivation, that being his desire to save Earth with the wrong methods. Like, imagine if it were Poppy putting people into these cages. Like with how Valentine was getting people to kill each other, there might be some more weight to this story if it's Poppy doing it instead. That does go to say that I see the Kingsman trilogy not in sequential order at all, but release order, like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Does that make sense?
How about new?
Okay, the first Pirates movie is a lot like the first Kingsman. It's unequivocally itself. It thrives because it takes risks, and it's a big fun swashbuckling adventure. While the CGI around the skeleton pirates is cool, it's more of an afterthought. The supernatural aspect of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise probably isn't the first thing you think about when someone mentions the series. It's likely the adventure. But the following movies dig harder into the supernatural. Davy Jones is great, but Salazar? That's up to you. Basically, what I'm saying is subversions and fantastical elements are Kingsman's supernatural. Each of these movies dig a little harder into trying to surprise you, when that's not what made Secret Service so good or so popular. Argyle, as a note, does that every fucking 15 minutes. Not to say it's a terrible thing, but it's jarring on your first watch because you're in a whiplash. And so after killing off half of the main Kingsman group and resurrecting Harry,
how is this asshole alive?
You get the Kingsman. Whether it was COVID, or Spider-Man No Way Home being the 7th highest grossing film of all time out at the same time, or being delayed 100 times because of 20th Century Fox that hurt this movie, I'm not really sure. The prequel, though, is tonally completely different than anything else that precedes it. I personally really like it, but I can also see why someone who loves this franchise might not. Because aside from the time period, this movie pivots hard. It's completely different than either of its predecessors. Instead of the young chap springing up to be the next hero, you're met with and yeah, I too watched The Secret Service. I also remember Harry mentioning that heirs dying World War I, but I also never thought that Conrad would be one of them. Like, it was crazy. But also, this movie is based in World War I, which requires a completely different shift in tone. Though I believe the reference to Pirates of the Caribbean still holds. The first one is super fun. The second one is great, but focuses more on aspects that didn't necessarily make the first one so popular. The third is fucking dark.
Because
I watched all 3 Kingsman movies back to back to back, and honestly, it's jarring going from each movie to the next in the franchise. It's awesome, but holy fucking hell, man.
I apologize.
I think the Kingsman struggles not because it's bad, but because it's not at all what came before it. The Rasputin fight scene is probably the most Kingsman-esque fight in the entire movie. Like you have Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, a Russian ballet-inspired fighting style from Rasputin himself, and constantly shifting camera styles. In true Kingsman fashion, it includes a great piece of music to accompany the fight on screen, but it's really the only sequence that feels like a Kingsman movie, based on what we've seen before, which, as a note, I actually really like that aspect about this film. A lot of people talk about how the Kingsman feels like it's trying to accomplish too much. It maintains the modern elements of the previous 2 movies, which are the spy story and the underground network, but it also surprisingly covers a lot of World War I history, accurately. Like Ferdinand's death happened very similarly, or the fact that King George the Kaiser and Tsar Nicholas were all played by the same actor because they were all cousins. This movie has the spy element, tons of historical references, but also tells a harrowing story of World War I on top of it.
What I thought would take a decade for us to achieve has taken 2 short years.
Which is why this movie can't be as quote-unquote fun as the previous 2. It has to be serious because of what it's dealing with. It's kind of the antithesis of what I talked about in my previous National Treasure video, because this movie can't glamorize history like how Harry does to Eggsy in the Secret Service. From a position is very anti-aristocrat, because it challenges someone like Oxford to sell his life to protecting the future, which clearly he doesn't do all that well.
Adolf Hitler.
I think, though, that the multiple tones in this movie are comparable to why Click works, and this might struggle for some viewers a little. Ha! Another shameless plug. This movie, unlike Click, is a part of a franchise, and it's also like an origin story, so that kind of is an issue there. This movie wants to be a lot at the same time, is what I'm saying. I personally think it does really well at that. But for the average moviegoer, it's a lot to take in. If you watched 1917, which chances are most people who watched this movie probably saw that, you might be underwhelmed. 1917 does the whole World War I in-person thing really well, without even covering the entire war from a macro level or a secret spy network or a Scotsman with aspirations to destroy Britain.
Surprise. You see,
it's with this that I think what Kingsman gets wrong is actually what it gets right. If you've ever been on this channel, I'm typically unapologetically positive, unless we're talking about Scrappy-Doo.
Fuck you!
The first half of this video, truthfully, is an understanding of why Kingsman is regarded so poorly. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, spy franchise out today. I love the Bond movies, but I often yearn for something that is more adventurous in tone. These movies do fail, quite a bit sometimes. A risk here and a risk there can be a little too much, even for fans like myself. That's most abundantly clear with the death of Roxy. It's probably the most needless thing to happen, equatable to even Merlin's death, both happening in the same movie. But a lot of what I've tried to do today is fully grasp what this franchise failed at, while also applauding its failures. Because regardless of the breaking even box office for The Kingsman, there are going to be 2 more sequels, The Blue Blood and The Traitor King. Chances are Traitor King will deal with the British monarchy and King George's son, Edward VIII, being a Nazi sympathizer and so forth, which also has tons of potential for Kingsman drama. But the third sequential movie, The Blue Blood, has the chance to encapsulate Golden Circle and Secret Service into one strong finale. And no, I'm not saying bring Merlin or Roxy back to do it. See, a lot of what I talked about in this video is how subversive and fantastical this franchise is. If you clicked on this video expecting to get a whiner, you weren't ever going to get it. Because what these movies accomplish with their wrongs is their greatest payoff. If you watch these movies in release order like I did, which also includes Argyle, you can see some course corrects. If we want to say that Secret Service is perfect, Golden Circle is a little too over the top. If we say that, then The Kingsman is a bit too serious, which comes back to Argyle, which is a bit of everything. I don't believe, aside from the set era, that we get something as gritty as The Kingsman without having the flamboyance of Golden Circle. Yeah, there are flaws and all, but overall, these movies thrive from being uniquely themselves. The Kingsman truly feels like it doesn't have the seemingly abundant need of outperforming its predecessor. The Secret Service has all of its great moments, but The Kingsman makes its own, something that feels slightly hindered in the previous film. The biggest struggle for the second movie is that it spends so much time trying to revise itself, or perhaps a better way to phrase it, is Golden Circle replays the hits. It can feel, sometimes, that it's trying to outdo what the previous movie did, to higher extremes. Oddly, it acts like the typical fourth film in a franchise. It tries to reinvent what doesn't need to be changed. The bar fight homage is needlessly present. Some of the actual Golden Circle stuff doesn't land. There's the whole president storyline, which I totally get, but it feels forced the way it's done. Golden Circle has some incredible moments, my favorite of which having already been mentioned as this.
Let's make this fair.
Or even the car chase scene at the beginning, / the final fight sequence, because both are great. But without trying to be Secret Service, The Kingsman makes itself almost a wholly new type of spy film. This does come from its muse. The man who would be king and Lawrence of Arabia are the biggest inspirations for this movie. But it also has to be that way because it's establishing what will be. Though I must admit that The Kingsman would likely thrive in a world where Kingsman 3 comes out before it. It's like imagine putting Phantom Menace between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
What did you say?
Okay, maybe a little bit different scenario, but still, you catch my drift? Fourth movies in major franchises typically try to start fresh or undo something that worked by doing something new. Just look at Transformers 4. Isn't that lovely?
What? Texas statute? That a real law?
Yep. Romeo and Juliet, huh?
Something like The Kingsman works better as the fourth installment of a franchise because it reinvents itself. Not in a bad way, but because it needs to. This is the most present with the emotional weight the story carries. I know a major complaint about this movie is that it feels like it bounces around into different plots, but I found the story especially compelling. The whole arc with Conrad losing his mother and Oxford being overprotective is your typical Luke Skywalker story. Conrad is positioned to be the main character, potential future lead of the series, and that's taken away because of his death. It's seriously one of my favorite decisions in this franchise, because it's a necessary risk, but it carries such depth for Oxford going forward. I know it's already a 2-hour long movie, but perhaps even adding another 20 minutes would make some of the transitions a little easier for the general public. I, however, find the story gripping, and that's 100% a result of the emotional storytelling that is both present in Secret Service and in this movie. It doesn't have to be the main focus, but it sits so well underneath the rest of the spy stuff that it feels imminent. And this is the same sensitivity that seems almost absent from most of Golden Circle, aside from the aforementioned scene with Eggsy grieving over Harry. But because releasing the Kingsman after Blue Blood obviously can't happen, having 3 movies that aren't in sequential order out for the public isn't a negative thing. Like, if you take the replayed American bar scene out of Golden Circle, nothing is really lost.
Manners?
Maketh
Man. Do you know what that means? Then let me teach you a lesson.
It's a cool homage that depicts Harry's amnesia-like issues, but not totally needed, whereas The Kingsman makes its own magic. Sure, the fights aren't nearly as flashy, but you cannot tell me that the No Man's Land fight isn't one of the coolest sequences in the franchise. And the best part is, Golden Circle has those moments. Whiskey's fight in the snow, while not the most practical thing ever, is awesome. It's wholly Kingsman. It's reminiscent of the calculated infiltration with Eggsy in the first movie. I think overly, the emotional weight these stories carry can be their biggest saviors, because that's the lesson that was gained from something like Golden Circle. It's fantastic in its own way, but it doesn't carry your emotional investment because things are thrown around. First Harry is resurrected, then Whiskey is, which means theoretically anyone can be aside from the fact that Roxy and Merlin detonated. In The Kingsman, it's not like Conrad is shot in the face and comes back 20 minutes later.
How is this asshole alive?
That'd be absurd, and having the instant resurrection device takes away the stakes. Harry's death in the first Kingsman holds so much weight because it directly leads to Arthur's death.
You dirty little fucking...
But it's also the entire motivator for Eggsy throughout the rest of the movie, because he has to be Galahad, while Roxy is the one who passed the trials and is Lancelot, similar to Oxford's handling of his son's death. We know for a fact that the chops to write and produce a fully emotional story sits within their hands, because it's the Kingsman. It is in essence the perfect course correct. The jarring reveals or subversions come at a much lesser surprise. In all fairness to Adolf Thanos Hitler,
I am inevitable.
He is technically revealed before the end of the movie. It took up until my 6th rewatch to catch it, but the dude killed the Kaiser and the Tsar. Yeah, that's him, assassinating 2 of the people responsible for World War I. We all thought he went to art school, but evidently, in his spare time, he was John Wicking European power players instead. Look, I can take one revelation, like this Adolf showing up, if it means that we don't have to watch Merlin die for no reason again. But if anything, what we have to learn the most from Argyle and the Kingsman is that Vaughn knows how to have fun but also tell an emotionally strong story. This franchise can both have a serious tone and be fun at the same time. Secret Service is the perfect example of that, just with fantastic pacing. I don't care what anyone says. This is the sauce right here. just like this is. And this is fucking awesome. This franchise is rooted in fantasy, serious emotional storytelling, insane visuals, and British spies. And yeah, I know that Kingsman has some sporadic tone changes, and that it can feel like a couple movies jumbled up into one movie, but it's fucking great. It, like the other films in this franchise, mess up, sure, but in the end they're all enjoyable. If the next installments don't focus on trying to outdo previous parts of this franchise, then I know that Kingsman will be bigger, badder, and better than ever before. So, if you like the word bruv, Kingsman movies, and me, you know what to do.